So I don't know if there's no agenda. I have some things I've been kind of thinking about for like when I've been testing things. That's been handy is like how to how to add testing data into the thing. So I've been experimenting with like using some scripts that Nick has got a repository to like add a bunch of checkouts, add a bunch of holds and stuff like that. And then and then going beyond that, you can use the SQL shell to like then edit all the due dates to be in the past or something like that. So it makes things kind of like easier to come up with weird, more like realistic data in KTD. So that's been kind of what I've been doing recently, experimenting with that.
It's also a nice way to make testing easier if you provide like a SQL script that you can
Yeah,
just,
like if you can put that into a test plan even, it can help
yeah,
other people recreate the whatever thing you need them to recreate.
yeah, I just did that for a bug that I'm working on for additional fields for bookings. And then you just provide the SQL and then you got less setup in the UI. And that's like I avoid some bugs that like need 40 steps or something on the UI just because it costs so much time. And if that can be like brought down, that's always good. Might get your bug faster through GA, for example.
And I played around with the custom SQL in the if inside the Koha repository that you can put a folder called shared and then a file called custom SQL and that will run every time that you start KTD up. So then I was playing around with it like to recreate some of our production system preferences so that I can like start up KTD that has some of the system preferences set the way that we have them. Then I thought it would be cool to make this a repository so that I can have like different branches. I can have a branch that's like got all these system preferences set up as the way that I um, have them in our production server, but then I can have another one that's like kind of just a clean slate, maybe with a couple of things like setting up a user with a certain user ID and password and stuff like that. Then you can just like switch branches before you start up KTD, and then we'll have like either the one setup or another setup. So I'm thinking of how to kind of how to use Git in funky ways like that. It's fun to play around with that. On the
Just
other side,
reminded.
it's another thing to remember. Like, what did I have set up there?
Yeah, it's actually a good tip. I haven't used it in ages, the custom SQL thing.
I keep thinking I should set that up if only to change the password system preferences. That's like the
Yeah,
thing most often going in and fiddling with to make my life easier is turning off strong passwords and reducing the password length requirement. Oh, Paul probably told you, but Lizette's not here. She took the week off after Hackfest. So I got no plans.
So I have something, I guess. So this patch that we've been working on like continually through this group is currently in fail QA. So
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to like bash my keyboard while we watch my screen to try and make that better if there's nothing else we wanna do today.
Yeah, let's do that. My sketchy memory is that it was not a real complicated failed QA problem.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of changing HTML to URI, but I don't know what the steps are to get from point A to point B. So let
Yeah,
me share
legit.
my screen. Okay, so here's a bug. And the comment was we're using HTML in these blocks, then it should be URI for better encoding.
Mm.
So I need to open pieces. I need to go into the KTD shell, right?
Mhm.
And then, so I guess my question is, should I make a branch, apply my current patch, and then edit that patch, or should I start from scratch? What's the best
I would make a
strategy here?
branch, apply your patch, make your edits, and attach those as a separate commit.
Okay, so you're gonna have to walk me through that a little bit. So making the branches, get checkout.
And then it's a great time to
Mm.
pause and in case Brendan or Paul would do something different.
I think that makes sense to me. And depending on like if it's a really small change, you can also just replace the patch that is already there. It's up to you, though, I think.
Okay, so I've made a branch. Now I'm gonna apply the patch.
Mhm.
Okay, so that should have, it did. Okay, so I still got all the files open because spoiler alert, I haven't worked on this at all since last time.
Yeah.
So the idea is to just change these from where it says HTML to URI. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one says URI.
And that's because you're putting a variable in a URL and it needs to be escaped, like in case there was characters that are not valid in a URL there.
Okay.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's that's my understanding of the URI filter there.
Okay, so what's next? Do I need to save these files?
Yeah. I mean, really, next is save that and reload the holds queue and make sure that it does what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
I suppose you probably want to restart. I mean, you shouldn't have to restart services.
So it appears like the URL is changed. And it did go directly to old queue, which is what we expect.
Yeah.
And then we changed in the breadcrumbs. What was the other place we changed it? Use old queue. Oh, on the left here. Yeah. So all those links are working as we expect. Okay. So now what do I do?
Now,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, go
I
ahead.
usually do like if you don't know like what's the current status, you do git status and you'll see that you modified these three files, but you haven't added them to the staged Git directory. So then
Okay.
you can copy those file names and say git add and add them. Sometimes you want to like just add a certain file, but you may be still working on the other files. So you could add them one at a time, or you could, in this case, it's those only three files that have been modified. So you could do git add space dot and add all the files that you modified
So I
at
do
once.
get dot like that,
Yeah. And
and that'll do
just
it.
with this one, it will add anything that you have modified. So you just want to make sure that you didn't modify some other files that you don't want to add.
Okay.
I didn't know
But
you could do that. Fancy.
okay,
Um,
so
I've got a bunch of untracked files hanging around in my repo. It would not add those, right? It would just add the modified ones.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
okay. So now if should I get status again?
Yeah.
So now it's saying they're green, so that means
So that means they're staged.
so now I'm ready for the next step, which is commit.
Yep.
Yep. And for that step also, like if it's just like a small thing that you're changing, maybe you can do git commit amend, and that way you don't have to like you don't have to worry about like adding the proper commit message and everything because it will just update the previous commit,
Okay.
But
which
this
is
is,
but this is good too. This
yeah,
works.
you're going to do a lot, very much the same thing you did the last time we did a follow-up. So you're going to put in a line here. I'll put it in the chat. It says bug number, colon space, follow-up.
I'm gonna have to, this is the one where I have to like use the insert. Okay.
Yeah.
Bug.
This is the screen where I find out that my fancy Apple keyboard has turned off numlock. And when I start to type the bug number, terminal goes crazy. It's sad every time.
Okay. I do that.
Actually, you don't want the
Colon.
whole bug name.
Colon.
Yeah, you want
Oh,
bug
cool.
something colon.
Yeah, please don't be
I've
careful
got
when
that.
you copy that.
Got it. Okay, so bug colon. Does that look right?
And
Yeah.
and
And then
because you're like replying to a failed QA, I think you put follow up in parentheses after the colon, right?
Yeah. I don't think it like makes the
It
world
doesn't
explode,
really matter.
but it's probably, better documentation.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Just one space too many.
Oh,
I have two. Wow. Okay. What's next?
probably put a line in there that says what you did. Change
Yep.
HTML filters to URI.
But if it's a follow-up, this should actually be the commit title, because then you just need to look
Oh,
at the
yeah.
title.
That's fair.
That's just easier to read if you don't if you do like, for example, git log one line and you want to view like 50 or 80 commits or something, then you can just see what it is in the title.
Okay, so
So
what should I do here?
take out where you've got default the hold Q link, yada yada, like the first line after follow up, delete that and put your changed HTML filters to URI there. So that the first line is saying what you did.
Okay. And I lost my eye. Hook
So
my eye
sorry.
out. There we go. Okay.
But then you're good. You can escape and colon WQ.
Okay.
And
Next,
then you attach that patch to the bug.
so that's the get easy attach
Mhm.
dash E bug number, and then head,
Yep.
and that's all I need there.
You could go tilde1 dot dot, but you don't have to.
Okay.
If you had more than one patch, you'd have to say tilde number of patches dot dot.
Okay. Okay. Now what?
So you are reading down the page. You are not obsoleting either of your two previous patches. So those lines are right. You just need to set this back to needs sign off.
Okay. And I have to do insert again.
Yeah. And just delete that hash sign.
Okay. That's it.
Yep.
And then escape WQ.
Yeah.
So that should be updated here. Good.
Looks good.
Cool. Anything else I need to do?
No, that's it.
All right. I'll stop sharing my screen then. and mute my microphone because there's lots of beeping going on over there.
Oh no. Can I interest anyone in an easy bug sign off? I wrote a patch this morning to put a bunch of classes on the circulation homepage to make it easy to hide things. Charlie, we haven't picked on you. Are you prepared to sign off on a thing?
Oh, I am nowhere on the
That's a
level
hard
of
no.
where you guys are right now. I'm actually getting keywords because I'm taking classes. So I'm just here to get my keywords.
Okay. Well, then I don't need to
This-
hijack this SIG to get sign offs on my own bugs. That seems a little rude.
This kind of a bug. I was recently thinking of a similar thing for the like in Koha. There's a piece called the logged in user, um, where you can get that in jQuery, and then you can do like if the logged in user is this branch, hide this or whatever. Um, or like make a button that has that branch code in it so that it's like a customized button per whatever branch you're logged into.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, um, could be cool to have that be like higher up in the DOM so that you could just use CSS maybe. Like if the logged in branch code was like in the body tag, then you could use CSS to like do stuff without using JavaScript, maybe. But it's because it's like lower in the DOM, you can only you can't use pure CSS. Does that make sense, kind of?
Not to me.
I only got half of that. Sorry.
So what are you trying
Like
to do with that logged in branch?
like so the logged in branch, yeah, I can use it and I can get the logged in branch with like jQuery, right? And then I
Mhm.
can do something like typically like we have certain things that we hide from most of all our library staff, but then only our central site has access to it. Like if there's something, not that it's like the best security because they could go in and unhide it maybe,
Sure.
but it's like hiding stuff that we don't want them to do. Um, so in that case, you could hide something using pure CSS, being like if the body tag has this, um, set the what is it? Display or visibility or whatever. I'm not that great at CSS, but
Yeah,
the
is it
CSS
No
the
one
CSS
is.
the CSS limitation is like you can only do that if it's like relative to wherever that thing is. So if the logged in branch code was like at the body tag level, then you could hide anything within the body. But because it's inside like a div inside a div, you can't access the rest of the DOM by pure CSS. Does that make
okay?
Could
sort of
you
more?
could you just show us what you mean in the code?
I wasn't that prepared.
I mean, I can show you here. Like the things you're describing, I really thought you could only do with jQuery. I didn't know that was CSS possible at all.
You
But
can do, yeah, see it has the pseudo selector has. So you can be like, if the body
yeah,
has the class, which this branch code, you know what I mean? Something like that.
yeah.
Then you
So
could
like,
then you could totally manipulate everything in the DOM. But because you have to be like in the logged in branch code div, then you can't have access to the whole rest of the DOM in the CSS.
yeah. So like, this is just the Koha homepage. We hit the body ID, and
Yeah.
all the way down,
And
we hit all of this stuff.
yeah.
And if I, Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
So
user menu, we've got those hidden values.
yeah, so like if we could have, I don't know exactly how it would work, but like in the if we could have like that logged in branch code hidden thing,
Mhm.
or it's somehow put it higher up in the DOM so that you could use that in CSS more easily.
Would the
I think George does this with some jQuery. Like he adds a class that is the logged in branch code to the body, and then you can use the class of the body to make modifications.
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
What
yeah,
exactly is your use case for this? What do you want to do with the logged
Just
in branch code?
just so like instead of having a bunch of jQuery in Internet User JS that says like check the logged in branch code and then do this, you could instead of having it to run jQuery for some of the stuff, you could just you for like hiding things, you could use just CSS. So it would take a little bit of JavaScript out of Internet User CS possibly. That's the only it really only came up because we had this thing hidden and I was trying to figure out a way to make it visible to some people. But maybe it's overkill. Maybe I think George's idea is simple too,
I
possibly.
mean, I know I've done similar stuff with jQuery, but yeah, it would be easier to do it with how like my old library, we had a jQuery feed of all of our events on the homepage, and it was limited to the events at the branch you were logged in at.
Yeah.
It's yeah. It is generally my impression that anything you can do with CSS instead of jQuery is going to be a little more stable and happy. So that makes sense.
A little just like taking some of the bloat, I guess, out of the jQuery if possible. But it's not a very high priority. I haven't really thought of the best way to do it.
I was glad to hear that coming out of Hackfest, one of the things that the community like decided they want to really pursue is moving jQuery and CSS into snippets instead of one giant text field. That'll be nice.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, me too. I was at the meeting where we decided, and it would be very useful.
Yeah, and
Indeed.
just have each of them sort of applied separately and not have everything break as soon as you put one typo in the system preference. How exciting.
Mm. I'm still wondering what you actually wanted to do with the. So do you use just the selector of data logged in branch something, or do
You
you?
can use has like the
Yeah,
CSS
yeah. If
like
you,
colon
yeah, sure.
has and then so you could say if the body has this class, which would maybe be like logged in branch underscore the branch code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then you could just hide stuff based on that just in CSS without having to like have any JavaScript. That's the main thing I was thinking of, but
Yeah.
it's not like a huge difference, I guess.
Yeah. That the thing about the split up snippets of JavaScript and maybe also CSS will also be that you could assign it to a specific branch code.
Ooh, yeah.
That would solve that problem. And it
That
would
would
be
be
a
a nice.
much better solution.
Yeah. So in that development to create snippets, there'll be like a table of snippets and it'll have a column for branch code, I guess.
I think that would make sense, and I think we also talked about it, but I don't know whether it's in the official specification yet, but it would totally make sense to do that.
Yeah, cool. Is there a bug for that that's filed already?
Um,
It's just in,
I need to
it's just
look.
on Mattermost.
It was, we talked about this today.
There is a bug. I
think.
don't know if anything's like there. I need to run away to talk to somebody else. Enjoy your baby steps. Goodbye.
Hi, Andrew.
What they call the snippets or something.
Now I'm thinking that would be a good uh enhancement for Aspen too, because Aspen has snippets, but it's just a snippet. I don't think you can. I mean, now I want to look at it.
Here's
Can
the bug.
can you add the branch?
38706.
Yeah, I want to follow that one.
Yeah, that's a bug. I think we talked about this sometime, maybe in the morning or something. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, very good idea. I will help bring that into Go because it's just making this modular is so helpful for so many things because you have much more control what, yeah, for example, the branches thing, just being able to map certain JavaScript to certain branches is awesome.
Yeah. Instead of having to do that every single time, or like maybe you can set up a global variable in the internet user JS, I guess, and reuse that. But I think ours is just kind of written a lot of, yeah, a lot of repeating stuff maybe is going on.
Yeah, and I think the Hackfest in general was in the spirit of modularity. We want to have everything modular because it makes many things so much easier. Yeah,
Yeah. Like there should
just
be some of the tables that don't have branch code, like it would be helpful if it had branch code maybe. For I think like it came up we have it for I think course reserves. It doesn't have the branch code. So you can't like limit the display of the course reserves without using JavaScript. So that's what we're doing. That's an example.
it actually sounds like a bug. Or just missing context and it didn't make it into the feature itself. But that should be something that should be reported if that's such an issue and you always need to use JavaScript. Because that is an obvious problem that somebody should look at, you know.
Right. There might be a bug for it. I'll have to look.
Yeah, and for like wherever it makes sense to add some columns to a table, this can easily make it into the actual tables, but for stuff that is like very custom to certain use cases, it's better to ask for additional field support on the core object because that is, yeah, that is maybe a bit more complex than just adding a new column to the table, but it perfectly fits these use cases where you don't want to have like this specific thing on the core table. And you can just pick your own column basically with even with authorized values and stuff. And that's another way to like get this extensibility.
So what did you call that? Adding to the koha object, adding
Additional fields. It's like a
additional
mix
field.
in into the class and then you map basically the core object and the associated table to these additional fields, and then you can define them however you want. They can be repeatable, they can be tied to authorized values, they can be just text, doesn't matter, and you can name them whatever you want. Yeah.
Or like in this case, it could be tied to whatever you have in the branches table, maybe. Like
Oh,
use the
additional
branches.
fields for branches would actually be a good. Yeah, don't we have that already? No, but I haven't seen it yet, so it must
So
not
like
be. But
you
it
could
would be a
use
good
the
idea, maybe.
branch codes as additional fields on the koha object. I have to learn about that.
Yeah, I just did the deep dive like a couple of weeks ago when I started working on additional fields for bookings, and yeah, it's not simple, but or maybe it is, and I'm just too slow. But yeah, that's very useful for like these use cases.
Thanks for those links, Jason.
Okay, that's very new, 2505. So it is already implemented and will come in 2505 and maybe in backported. Oh no, it's an enhancement, so it will probably not be back, or maybe 2411, maybe, but I don't know.
So the libraries table, is that the branches table? Additional fields, admin screen.
I think you call it libraries. I think in the database it's still branches.
Yeah. Oh, but it says libraries in the koha interface. Okay.
Yeah, and in the API, I think as well. But that's good. That was also interesting. Didn't know that was already implemented. That's great, actually. Yeah, it's already pushed. Cannot do anything about it anymore. But that's not a bad thing. Yeah, and like this, with the additional fields for libraries, you can do that for many tables that like yield these use cases where we need to have more extensibility than the base table provides, basically. Yeah.
So the additional fields would be a preferred solution over adding a column to the
No,
table.
not in all cases. If the core column is very makes a lot of sense to be like a core column, then it's better to have it as a core column. It's just
Yeah.
for these cases where you have like things that are too specific to a certain institution, for example, to be a core column in the table. And that's where these additional fields are a good solution. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we are talking too much about additional fields as baby devs and not like advanced advanced core
Sorry.
stuff.
I'm already looking it up, so maybe this will help me jump ahead of the class.
Yeah, it's not that simple. To be perfectly honest, it's some things I still haven't understood myself. And I even asked like the person that implemented it, and I still haven't understood it.
I'm hoping that more exposure to this kind of talk will just be like, oh wait, I've heard about this before, and I can now kind of like follow the conversation. So
That
just
that
the
is very true.
exposure.
That
Yeah.
is very true. Exposure is very important.
Yeah.
Just to pick up like these little bits. Totally right.
Right.
There's still something you want to do, or
I don't know. We've still got 20 minutes. I mean, I could fumble through signing off on Andrew's bug if we want another like demonstration of for the recording and practice for me because I haven't signed off on bugs much using KTD.
yeah, then you should practice more.
Okay, let me. I feel like now this is all about me, just teaching me how to do stuff. But I suppose the
This is for
recording is
the
useful for people.
viewers. This is for
Yes,
the viewers, Jason.
the audience at home. Okay, so to sign off on a bug, I need to. I'll do a new branch. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's it. Checkout -b bug underscore, and then I need the bug number that he linked. Was classing up the circulation homepage. 38994. Originate. Oh, now I need to apply it. Or should I? But when I'm testing, I should look at it first, right?
That's probably a good idea, yeah.
Confirm that it's not there before I confirm that it's there. Okay, let me find my. This over. So what he's doing is adding things to the circulation homepage.
What are you doing right now?
Well, we're doing this bug, sorry. 38994.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So he says there aren't distinct HTML classes on the various sections and buttons at Circ Home. So that's like these. Just says Circ button, Circ button. Let's see what he actually changed. So he's changing it from Circ button to Circ button, checkout, check-in, adding classes. Okay, so we have confirmed that those classes do not currently exist here. So now I want to apply his patch, which 38994. Okay, so my notes say to do like a restart all at this point. Is that necessary? Is there other stuff I should do at this point?
So like restart all, I think it usually is if the PL files changed, but if it's just a template, it doesn't matter, I don't think.
Okay, so I
But
should be able to
if
just refresh and see the changes, and I do.
Yeah, that was the right explanation, by the way.
Okay. So let's see. So we inspected, saw the lack of distinct classes, applied the patch, reloaded the page, and now I've confirmed page, nothing on the display has changed. That's correct. Everything looks the same. The page elements have distinct classes and can be targeted with CSS. So yes, checkout class, check-in class. These IDs are new, I believe. Those are the sections he was talking about. So I think it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now to sign off, it is get SO, and then the number of patches is 1, because there's only one thing here, right?
Yep.
Okay. So get SO1, is that right? Sorry, I keep asking for confirmation.
Yep.
I don't want to blow anything up. One time, so like way back in Erie,
For
I
one,
was like,
you can also just do git SO.
for one, I can
You
just
can
do
omit
get
the
SO.
one.
Okay. Like when we were doing this in Erie way back when, I like put in the bug number instead of the number of patches, and they're like, "Oh no, that's probably a bad idea."
Yeah, that's probably not good.
Okay,
Say sign off on 30,000 patches.
Yeah. Okay. ID bug number is 38994 head. That look right?
Yep.
Okay. And then I change it by uncomment signed off.
Yep.
And then that's all I have to do here, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So then WQ. And over here, it signed off and signed off. Okay. I feel like this is getting easier every time I do it.
Yeah.
So that's good. It's just a matter of finding time. Like I need to set up, like I need my Friday afternoons to be just this or something so that I'm doing it more often.
Yeah. And like having some kind of like schedule, or like not necessarily a schedule, but to be able to like do it consistently will help you to remember like all the little steps, I think.
Yeah, I'm always just paranoid that I'm gonna break something, like fat finger something and mess something up. But I know I've been told over and over that it's fine, and if I do something questionable and something breaks, then I just use the
First of
Mattermost.
all, it's fine. Second of all, what was the second thing I wanted to say? The second thing is, we all make mistakes. That's not what I wanted to say, but that's a good platitude. And uh, oh, for God's sake.
You can't really mess anything up, I don't think. Like because if you let's say you
Thanks. Yeah, now I know what I wanted to say. Just think about when you are doing something that like is a destructive action towards a remote thing. Then you need to be alert. If it's just on your system, you can fix everything with Git. You can fix much more with Git than you may know. And it just takes a little bit of experience and just learn a bit Git maybe a bit deeper. It's especially useful for like community work. And yeah, just think about if you are going to somewhere else, then you need to think about what you're doing. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, and I think that's part of my problem is like I don't have any sort of foundation in any of this. Like this is my first experience with Git and that sort of thing. So like I don't fully understand how things are interconnected. Like I know I've got my local machine and I know there's the repository and I know that when I'm pushing things, I'm pushing it not into the code base. Like I'm just like somebody else has to look at it before my
Yeah,
changes
but
ever get anywhere, that sort
let's
of
dem
thing.
let's demystify it a bit. So you're on your local machine, right?
Right.
And then if you do like a git checkout dash b bug blah blah upstream main, then you set up a bug that tracks upstream main. That is the current head of core development, basically. And that's where you base your patch on top of. And then if you like write your patch and stage the changes and then commit, then you have a local Git. Well, all of these are Git objects, but for example, for the commit, you have a Git object, and this includes a lot of metadata, including your changes. And then what you do when you do git bz attach blah 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 is you send a request with your commit information to Bugzilla. And then it receives that request and updates the UI on Bugzilla. So that happens on the Bugzilla server. That is separate from the Git server. The fetching from the repository itself is on the Git server, so git.koha-community.org, or whatever you put as your remote GitLab and GitHub are also available. And yeah, as release maintainers or as the release manager, you then take the things from Bugzilla and apply them to main. I'm not entirely sure, but they have to do it in this way in some form. I have never read the release manager documentation exactly, but if I can speak as a release maintainer, if I like push patches to the actual Git repository, I take sometimes for the security patches the patches straight from Bugzilla because they are not in main yet. But otherwise, I watch Katrin's branch, which is main, and then I look at the difference between my branch, so 2411x, and main, and look which commits do I not have. And then you need to decide which commits you need to basically cherry pick. I don't know whether you know what it is. Yeah, whether you cherry pick certain commits and like get them into my branch, which is 2411x. And if I have like 15 of them or something in that ballpark, I actually do, that's when I do the singular push to 2411x. And that's the only Git interaction I actually do. Well, except for like getting stuff, but it's very controlled, you know? And that's a good thing that we have Bugzilla, and well, you could argue that it's a good thing that we have Bugzilla like as a wall of catching mistakes and yeah, just defending the Koha code base against bad code. Which still gets in though. Yeah. But I think I derailed at some point. I actually wanted to demonstrate something else, but might have been interesting anyway.
I'm interested in like what you do when you really want to do like QA or like when you're backporting something and you want to look at the diffs. Are you using in KTD there's the thing called TIG, or you could just use Git, I guess, or do you use like the Visual Studio Code, um,
It depends
some
a bit.
combination?
It depends a bit on the thing I'm trying to do. There's this great feature in Studio Code, which is like the merge editor. And that's really, I have never used that before I started release maintenance. Because that was the first time that I actually needed to like look at branches that have diverged and like merge the changes from both into one result. And that is what the merge editor in VS Code or any fork is actually really good at. And that's the only use case that I use that for. I sometimes I look also at the source control tab in like a
Yeah.
VS Code fork or something, just because for front end code, it's always a lot of changes. And I think that's sometimes easier to play with or look at in VS Code compared to my new Vim config, for example. But if
Yeah.
it's really like backend code and I just do QA or something, I use new Vim just because it's very fast to navigate the actual file. And yeah, it's like I always wanted one editor, but I came to the conclusion that having different tools for different jobs is actually okay, and I can live with that. Although it makes you a bit of a soida to use VS Code, but but I think VS Code is actually, or yeah, the VS Code team still builds like the platform, so they do actually pretty good work. And it's a tool like other tools, and it's fine to use it, I think. But a fork is preferable, of course. If it's not
Fog?
a fork,
Oh, fork.
if it's not tied to Microsoft, that's even better. Yeah, but just view VS Code as a blanket for all the forks.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. No,
Um,
I'm just trying to like figure out like a good way to like look at the diffs. I'm trying to
Mm.
do some QA, but
I've
I'm
totally
focused on the front end.
totally forgot. TIG is also very powerful.
Yeah, TIG is
It
pretty cool, I think.
has a lot of hidden. You can pipe ranges into TIG. So blah blah git log something something a range of commits, and then pipe it with the pipe character into TIG, and we'll display that in a nicer form also. So it can also receive from standard in, and that's something I recently learned, and it's very useful.
Yeah, I don't really know. I need to learn a lot more how to use TIG. It's
Yeah, there's one cool other tool that you might also want to use, which is called TLDR. It's like a open source database of documentation that you can query directly from the command line. It's very useful for things like Git or curl or all the things that have like 1,000 different options.
is that in that's you can install it. It's not in KTD, right?
No, it's not in KDD, but you can install it. But maybe it should be in KDD. Or I actually had the idea to make a development or core development Docker at some point, but I never have the time to do that. Yeah, I think this here is the main repository, but you can also like on your host just do TLDR if you are not necessarily on Windows or something. If you are like on a Unix system like Linux or Mac, you can just TLDR on the binary that you have on your host. I think you have Git installed, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah, and most of the tools that are available in the Debian shell or in the Bash or yeah, in the shell within KDD are also on your host if you're on macOS or Linux. And if you use Windows, use Windows subsystem for Linux, then you also have a Unix shell or a Unixoid shell.
Cool, I'm gonna try that.
It's great if you have like things that you use once every 3 months or something. I need to look up the options again.
Yeah, it's nice that you have that tool in the command line so you don't have to like open up a browser and like search and you know, it's like right there where you already are.
Yeah, life is better on a command line.
We're rounding out the hour. I think if there's nothing else you guys want to talk about, we could wrap it up. But I do appreciate you guys showing up because it was super helpful, and I feel like I'm getting more confident in it. And just like Charlie said, I'm just sort of absorbing some of the stuff you're talking about that I don't understand. But I think it's the pieces are coming together. So
Yes, thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So if there's nothing else, we can meet again this time next month. Good.
Thanks
All right.
for sharing your screen and
Nice
thanks
day.
for sharing your knowledge, Paul.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Knowledge is too much.
All
Yeah,
right.
but
See you guys.
have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.